Hello, welcome to the Fundamentals of Cost Estimating and Bidding, Module 10, Technology for Estimating. I'm Vince Hughes with Still Estimating Solutions, and in this Module 10, we're going to be going over Bluebeam Revu Extreme. Some of the topics of discussion are going to be how to set up and organize your project folders, importing documents, how to label drawings, hyperlinking the details, and then go through some setup process, calibrating scale, checking the scale on the drawings, setting up spaces for items like areas or floors, measurement tools, tool chest, creating a legend, and then on how to perform a takeoff in Bluebeam, counting items like beams, columns, bar joists, counting other items, roof openings, moment connections, etc. How to take off a detail, take off the decking, and then last but not least, exporting from Bluebeam Revu into Excel to be able to import it into other types of takeoff software, such as the Still Erection Bid Wizard. Before we jump in there too far, let's just talk a little bit about the interface of Bluebeam. Some people get into Bluebeam and feel pretty overwhelmed because you have buttons all over the place, and it does get a little bit overwhelming, I would say. But what you want to keep in mind that when you're working with Bluebeam and doing a still erection takeoff, you don't need to know everything that's in Bluebeam. When we come over here to the left hand side on the vertical column, you're going to see some tools, and when you put your cursor over these tools, it will tell you what they are. So I mean, this takes a little bit of time, but like I say, you don't have to know every item in Bluebeam to be able to do a still erection takeoff. When we come across the top, when we click on these different menus at the top, they have drop downs that has all kinds of stuff. And as I say, it does seem to get a little bit overwhelming. You come over to the right hand side, you have all this other items going down, different tools. But just keep in mind, I'll say it again, you don't need to know everything about Bluebeam to perform a successful still erection takeoff. What you need to do is just learn what you need to know, and that's only about a handful of items that you really need to know to be able to use Bluebeam successfully for a still erection takeoff. So with that said, let's just go ahead and jump into this module here. So setting up project folders, we went through that in module 9 as well, but we'll go through it again here real quick. Basically, you're going to go into your computer and you're going to look at your drives. You always have a C drive in your computer. You always want to look at how much space is on there because you're going to be storing drawings. So you don't want to use your C drive unless you have like a terabyte of storage. You don't want to store drawings on your C drive because it'll start loading it up, and that's what operates your system. So if you do have a computer that only has a C drive, you can go out and buy an external hard drive, which is what this F is over here. It's got almost 2 terabytes of storage, so that's more storage than you would ever need. It's an external hard drive. You just plug it in your computer, and then you can start storing your drawings on that external hard drive. And what's nice about that is you can take it, it's mobile. You can, attach it to any computer and you'll have access to your plans. But all we're going to do is open up that drive, and I've already created it for the last module, but we create a folder called Project 2020. And then within that Project 2020 folder, we will set up job folders. So I call this folder here Impact Estimating. So we create the job folder, and then within that folder, we're going to create 3 more folders. We're going to create an addendums folder, a plans folder, and a spec folder. So basically, now once we have those set up, whether you get your drawings from a plan room or somebody emails you a PDF, whatever that may be, all we have to do is grab that drawings that they sent us, we copy it, and then we're going to paste it right into the plans folder in our jobs folder. Very simple process. So you're basically creating 3 folders, putting your addendums in the addendums folder, plans in the plans folder, specs in the specs folder. Now to get the plans into Bluebeam, very simple process. With Bluebeam, all we have to do is open up the plans folder and double click on the PDF. That will open up, if your Bluebeam's not already open, it will open up Bluebeam and put the plans right into Bluebeam. So it makes it a pretty simple process to get that to happen. Then once we got the plans into Bluebeam, a lot of times you're going to have plans that come in and they are not labeled. And you'll look over here, and the way I get this thumbnail up here is on the left hand side of these tools. We have this little 4 window panes. If I click on that, let me get out of it and go, there we go. When I click on it, it will open up these windows and we get to see all the plans. So what you'll notice over here on the left hand side where all the plans are at is the plans sometimes come to you and they are not labeled. So right now we're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Makes it a little bit hard to navigate through the drawings. So what we need to do is relabel the drawings. And I'm going to just show you a resource real quick, just before we get too far in there, so you'll know it's available. Is on my website, stillestimating-solutions.com. If you go to stillestimating-solutions.com, go to the top, to the home tab, do the drop down, Still Estimating Solutions blog. Click that, it'll take you to the blog, and then from here, there's a drop down under categories. You just drop down, select Bluebeam video series for still erectors. And the reason I'm telling you this is there is more in-depth videos here on everything I'm going to go over today, so you'll have the ability to have a video that walks you through the process of doing everything we're going to talk about today. So I just wanted to throw that out there so you're aware of it. But now back to label and drawings. Very, very simple process. All we have to do is come up here to the top. It says thumbnails. You have to be inside the thumbnail area where the plans are showing. You go to thumbnails right here. If you put your cursor over this little U with a starburst, it says create page labels. We click that. Come down here, this window pops open. We hit page region. We click select. And we always want to make sure all pages are selected, which it typically defaults to that. But we select, and then we're just going to come down and rope around in the title block only the plan number. We don't want to get outside the borders. We just want to do a little bit big area around the A-000. Once we rope around that, it's going to pop up and it's going to show us a preview. If the preview looks correct, by that I mean as being the same label as or the drawing number as what we searched, we hit OK. It's going to pop up. We're going to say OK. It tells again to check page region. Want to have all plans, and we say OK. It's going to run through here now and create all page labels. This is one of the main reasons I myself personally use Bluebeam. I don't use Bluebeam for takeoffs. I use a different software. We went to that on Module 9. But I use Bluebeam for document control. And it makes life so much easier because when you get a PDF without page labels, it makes it pretty tough to do it manually. So Bluebeam very quickly will label all these drawings as you're seeing right here. Now all the plans are labeled. Then the next step, if we're doing a takeoff in Bluebeam, the next thing we'd want to do is hyperlink all the details. So what that means to detail pages, not necessarily the details. I can hyperlink each detail to an individual detail, but I don't do that because it takes a lot of time to individualize a hyperlink to every single detail. I just hyperlink detail pages. To do that is very simple. All we have to do is come up here to documents, to batch. Batch, come down to link, say new. Once we hit new, we're going to add open file. So that means we got a file open, these plans, we add open file, it pulls it in, then we go to next. It'll pull up this here. We're going to want to check mark page label. And once we select page label, we're going to hit generate. Once we do generate, it's going to load up a list here, and we got to scroll through here and verify that there is no, if there was an error and had a problem finding one of the links or one of the page labels, you'd have a check mark there. So it'd be like a red check mark, but being these are all good, it doesn't give that check mark. Everything's good. So the next thing I would do is come to link options. And I always change this color here myself to for some reason it's not letting me change the color. Oh, there we go. You got to check mark include appearance properties. And then once I check mark include appearance properties, I highlight it in green. And what that is going to do a green box around the detail, which we'll see in a moment. Once I've done that, I say okay. And then I come down here and I hit run. What it's doing now, it's creating hyperlinks for every detail in the drawing, which is really, really cool, I think. And keep in mind, a benefit of this that you can do that I find very beneficial is you can take a set of erection drawings and a set of shop drawings and hyperlink the two together. And once you do that, if we're on the erection drawings and we have a beam B55 and there was an issue with it, and I'm looking at the plans on a tablet, I can click on beam B55 and it'll take me directly to the cut sheet for beam B55. As well as it'll hyperlink all the details. So if I'm on the plan, I can click on detail S505 and it will take me right there to that page where detail S505 is at, or form 505. Makes it very, very, very nice for in the field if you get your guys using a tablet out in the field. Then once the hyperlink, the batch link is complete, you will get this notification. There's 224 hyperlinks created. I'm not sure why there's deleted hyperlinks. Maybe there's some already in the PDF or whatever that might be. I'm not sure. But we created 224 hyperlinks in a very quick manner. We hit finish and close. And now it's going to run through the drawings and it will hyperlink all details in the drawings. And now what you see here on these drawings here is we got a green hyperlink around that drawing. So if I click on it, I'm gonna go to A601. And it's still, after creating those hyperlinks, it takes a minute for all the drawings to build back. So let's give it a minute. Okay, now we can see we're at A601. If I come here to this hyperlink, A702, now I'm to sheet A702. Now every single hyperlink in the plan, or every detail, is hyperlinked. So you know how sometimes you go to a detail, it starts throwing you down a rabbit hole and it says now you need to go to this detail and then you got to go to that detail. That is a really cool feature, I think, about Bluebeam, and how quick I can navigate to different locations in the drawing by these hyperlinks that were just created. So now that the hyperlinks are all set up, one other thing that I find a good practice to do is it's called flattening the drawings. And the reason we do that is because sometimes PDFs will come in and they have created multiple layers on the drawings. And to make the drawings, transfer between each one smoothly, I always flatten them. And the flatten drawings, all we do is go to Documents, come down here to Flatten. This window will pop up and you check mark all that stuff. And I always just do markups. And then I hit flatten. What that's going to do is run through this drawing and it'll flatten all of the markups that might have previously been on the drawing, which will make the PDF perform a little bit better when you're going page to page. So let's wait for that to flatten and get done. Once you flatten the drawings, you'll see again that all the drawings go blank again, and it takes a minute to rebuild everything, just like we did with the hyperlink. So that's just something that happens in Bluebeam. You kind of got to let it finish that process, and then once they all get rebuilt again, then we can carry on. I always wait and let it get completely done before I start doing anything else, because it just kind of slows the process down when you're trying to change it. So then we'll jump to the very first page where we have a takeoff on. And again, here you see the details are all hyperlinked with that green square around it. So we know all the details are hyperlinked. And now what we're going to do is set scale. So to set scale is pretty simple. We just zoom into a dimension, and you don't hear, we can look at what the scale is, but the way Bluebeam's set up for their scale, you really don't need to do that because we're going to tell it what the dimension is, the way Bluebeam's set up. So we come into tools, go to measure. On measure, we have calibrate. When I hit calibrate, it's going to tell me to pick two known dimensions. So I select, well, I got to say okay first. I select the first grid line, come to the second grid line, and then it pops up this window. And right here, I'm going to tell it it is 17 foot, 7.5 inches. And myself, I always try to find a dimension that's an even number. I try not to do inches, but on this particular drawing, I guess they got a ½ inch grid lines. We say apply scale. And then once we do that, we're going to come back to tools, measure, and we'll grab a length. And we just verified that it did scale the drawings correctly. That, to me, it's always important to verify that the drawings, are scaled correctly. And then I believe we can come here and move this down out of the other dimension. And so then once that's done, typically I'll highlight that in green, but here inside of Bluebeam, it's already red, so I can pretty much visually see that I've checked the scale on this page. Then the next thing, if we're gonna set up and do a takeoff and wanna have it broken out by area, we do that by setting up spaces. Very easy to do. All we have to do is come over here to the toolbar on the left-hand side. If you put your cursor over this one right here, it says spaces. If I click it, then it opens up spaces, and we have our cursor, put it over it, it says add spaces, highlight spaces, edit spaces. So if I wanted to take this project off by floor, all I have to do is go add space. I would rope around that space. It's going to pop up a window and ask me what I want to name the space. I say second floor. And say okay. And now what we've done is we've created a space of the second floor. All of my takeoff in that area will be be labeled as the second floor in my takeoff. And if I uncheck mark that, if I check this one here, highlight spaces, it'll highlight it and leave it that way. I always go ahead and uncheck mark it. The space is there, but I don't have to see that highlight. So now once we've set up spaces, basically what I do is I go to every single plan and set the scale, set up the spaces, and then from that point in Bluebeam, I'd be ready to take off, start doing the takeoff. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the measurement tools. So we have in Bluebeam, it's called a tool chest. So what I've done for the Still Erection Bid Wizard is I've already created profiles. And so here on the left-hand side in the tool chest, you'll see all the different categories. And inside those categories, I have tasks, all your beams, different size beams. If I come down here to angle, we'll have a category of angle, install edge angle, so on and so forth, all the different types of angle conditions. So I've created a profile to match the Still Erection Bid Wizard. So these are tools that are already predefined, already created, and they're out of the box. You get the profile, plug it in, you're ready to start doing a takeoff using this profile. And of course, if you're using the Still Erection Bid Wizard, that takeoff is going to import into the Bid Wizard when you're done. But when you initially get Bluebeam, you can set up, just like I did here, create your own profiles. You don't have to have the Still Erection Bid Wizard profile. You can create your own. And just a little talk about how to set that up. is you have, for me, I have a rect task, I have connect task, bolting, welding, and I have install task, your miscellaneous items. But when you first get Bluebeam, you don't have any of these set up. You have to start creating from scratch. So all we have to do there is come to tools, markups, and you're going to see right here, you have all your different types of tools. And when you come down to measure, right here, you're going to see a link tool, area tool. You have your count tool down here. So when I select one of these tools, now that becomes a count tool. You would have to come over, and I'm not going to go too deep into this because Bluebeam has some great videos on how to create new, how to create tool sets is what they call them. But once you set them up and you've created that tool and you've used it, you can start building a profile. So you can name this one beams or columns or whatever it would be. And once I'm done, this tool here will wind up being in my recent tools. And so then you can wind up building a profile and, basically create it the way I've done here, structuring it to make it very simple when you start doing a takeoff. But like I say, Bluebeam has some really great videos on how to set up the tools and create new tool sets and things like that. So it'd be something that, you want to start from scratch. You can definitely research those videos and figure out how that's done. Let me go and get rid of these. So before performing a takeoff, one thing we want to do is turn on the legend. And it seems like there should be a way to default a legend. I haven't found it. But to set a legend up, and the reason we want this is it will start doing, every time I click on the page, it'll start creating me a list of what I've taken off on the page. So basically, all we have to do is go to the tool chest, the little settings wheel, come down, legend, and create legend. So what that's done for me is when I come here and I start counting, might be that we have to count first and then create a legend. Once I start counting, that legend will be built on the drawing, and as I do more takeoff, it will keep on building. So let me go ahead and get rid of these ones. So that's how we set up a legend for our takeoff. Now to start performing a takeoff, once again, very simple process. We're going to come in here. We have our columns. So first thing, that's what I always take off first is my columns. It's a 3-story building, so I'm going to go with a 40-foot column. I just come here and click on the columns. And as I showed in Module 9, Bluebeam's the same concept. It's about speed. How fast can I do a takeoff? So instead of clicking on every column, I would just highlight these columns, hold the control key down, and then I drag and I drop. So on the columns, I just drag and drop at each one of the column lines that are typical columns. And then of course I got to go back and find the different columns that aren't in a typical way, or in a typical bay, I should say. So there we have all our columns. And the next thing we're going to do is, my second thing I do is go and start counting beams. So we can come up here to 1621. I can just come through and start clicking on all the W16s. Or, of course, we're trying to get speed. Let me undo these, and we can do a search. And the way we do a search in Bluebeam is we come here, go to the right hand side, get rectangle, right here where it says search, get rectangle, zoom in. I always rope around the W16X. And current page. You got a sensitivity, you can adjust that sensitivity up or down, search multiple rotations, filter by column, uncheck mark that. Once you uncheck mark these, it will should default to that, so you don't have to click check it every time. And then once we set all that, we go ahead and hit search. And of course it's going to go through and it's going to find all the W16s. And we'll see down here on the right hand side, it has the results coming up. So we'll have to wait a little bit for that to get done. And just like in takeoff, they allow you to work within the software while the search is going on. So I can come over here to moment welds, for example. Means I got these moment welds up here, 22 pounds per foot. Grab the right moment weld correspondence to the 0.29 pounds, and we can count those moment welds while we're waiting for this search to go on. We got these little channels over here, and once again in the bid wizard, if something sets like a beam, bolts like a beam, I will take it off like a beam. So we got these channels 6 by 6.5, so I just grab my W6 to 10s and come through and just count those. And we're doing that while we got our search going on. And the great thing with the digital takeoff, if it's not colored, it's not counted. So as we start going through this, the drawing becomes very highlighted with all the beams that we're taking off, columns. And if it's not highlighted, we didn't count it. Once the search result is done, it will pop up the search result here on the right hand side. And what we have to do now is we can select all by checking this box. That checks marks them all, but then I have to, let me open that up a little bit and you see them all a little better. I have to go through here and uncheck mark what's not a W16 to 21. Scroll through that list. We got these W18s there. So pretty much everything else is a 16, W16. I will come to this little drop down. Apply count measurement checked. 16 to 21. And now we have the W16s that came. Now with Bluebeam, I'm going to have to do another search now. Where if you notice in takeoff, it found all the beams for me. Every single beam that was there, it found them for me. But I have to come over here and delete. And then I would have to come and you see these W16s didn't get picked up, probably because of the filter. But I would go ahead and, the nice thing about it, it's easy to see. They pop out like a sore thumb that they didn't get counted. So then I just come and count the ones that didn't get counted. But then I'm gonna have to search for the W21s. And then I'm gonna have to come search for the W10s and go around this drawing and search for everything. If you remember in Module 9 in takeoff, when we ran this search, it found everything and I filtered in the list of the search and was able to count all the beams complete upon finishing that search. And the other downfall too I find with Bluebeam is the shear studs. Still basically have to count the shear studs manually, where takeoff, it would count those up to for me. I can assign a multiplier within the condition for shear studs, and it would go find all the shear studs for me and total them up. So that's basically how we're doing a count for beams and columns. Then let's come on over to other items. I mean, if we had stairways, same concept as far as on the takeoff. You could either take this off here or you take it off in the elevations. If I was taking it off on this drawing, all I'm gonna do is come to the stairways, because I always like to do all count items before I go to the details. Now, granted, on the stairs, you probably have to go look at the details to verify that, you know, it is what, you know, it is still for one. But all I'm gonna do is on the stairways is I'd come over here, grab this little smaller one here, let's get a different one because it'd be a cheaper production rate. Kind of my handrails, guardrails up the center. Got two of them. Grab the wall rails. So that basically has my stairways ticking off there. Roof opening is the same concept. I mean, inside the Bid Wizard task, we have frames. If we had roof openings, all we do is select the roof opening and go and count them. Floor openings, go and count them. From here, let's go ahead and jump into a detail. So if I click on here, S7, S302, we zoom into that detail so we can see it. This is a downfall that I find from Bluebeam with the hyperlinking. Where takeoff, I have two monitors. So I have my detailed plans on a second monitor, my main plans on the other monitor. I'm looking left to right to see it. Here I'm still like I'm flipping a page to go to it. But it's what I don't like about it is when I got to go back to where my takeoff's at, I have to hit this back button. Previous view, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times to get back to my detail, which I guess isn't that big of a deal. But for me, I like looking left to right. If I have a combined PDF, I can't separate it out, because if this was not combined, it had all the sheets listed separately, which then I'd have hundreds of sheets across the top here. I could take one of those sheets and put another screen, which would be a detail screen, and be watching the details over there. But it's just not really feasible. I have not found a way in Bluebeam to be able to use two monitors and be able to navigate to each detail in an efficient manner. But basically, let's go look at this 7S302. If Bluebeam would just simply put a back to previous page, not previous view, just a simple button, back to previous page, and it took me back to my sheet, it'd be a beautiful thing. But they have not done that. And I've asked personally several times if they could do that, but it never did happen. So on this detail, what we're going to see is a wind girt. Looks like we got a welded in, 5 inches of weld. We got basically 2 kickers and 2 wedge anchors. So for me to take that off, all I'm going to do is come back to the plan, hit the back button sometimes here. And where that detail is happening is all these columns going around the perimeter of that building. So all the way around this building, we got that condition. So First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come to my tube. In my tube, I have a weld vertical tube. We'll talk about production rates in the bid wizard in module 11. But basically, weld vertical tube would cover what I had to do on this. And a couple ways I could do it. I could do one, then come to average knee brace. We had 2 of those there. And then come to my wedge anchor. Had 2 of those. So I could do it like that. And let's see, I'm assuming I can do this. Like I say, I don't do a lot of takeoffs in Bluebeam. Yeah, so I can highlight them. And then if I hit the control key, then I can drag these and drop them. And so you get the idea there. We're dragging, we're dropping it. We could drop it at every one of those locations just to save up the time so I don't have to sit there and count every time. So basically drag and drop at each one of these locations where that column goes, and just speeds up that takeoff process. So let's go look at another detail. Let's go to 9301. 930N, we see some bent plate there. So just saying continuous bent plate, so we'll just call that some perimeter angle. Take off perimeter angle is very simple as well. We come to angle, average top of steel angle, and here is another thing that drives me nuts about Bluebeam is when I take off my perimeter angle, I want my perimeter angle on the beam where I'm taking it off. What Bluebeam does, for whatever reason, I have no idea, they put a little tail on it. So when I take it off right on the line, on the grid line, it puts this little tail and it throws it off the beam line. Not sure why it does that, but that's what it does. So right now I'm taking it off down that beam line. Once I finish it, it takes it, puts a little tail and throws it off out into the middle of the space. Still works, you still get a correct quantity, but I get frustrated with, I like my drawings, when I finish a takeoff, I like it to be, how it is, sitting right on top of that beam. We'll just finish around the perimeter here. And that's how easy it is to do a takeoff of perimeter angle. And so basically, you're just going to run to every detail and see what's at that detail and come to the plan and take it off. It's a pretty simple process, just like you do on a hard set of plans, but it can become much quicker when you go digital as far as performing the takeoff. Then the next thing would be is to talk about decking. What's nice about when you're doing a digital takeoff on decking, it doesn't matter the shape of the building, if it's a pie or if it's a circle or radius or whatever. All we have to do is click around the perimeter of the outline of the building, and we get the exact square footage in a very quick fashion. And it highlights in blue. And I always take off the deck last. After I've done all my counts of everything, I always do the decking last. That tells me that I've completed my takeoff, and that way I know I'm done. And I did notice here that this list is not building, so it looks like what we have to do is once we're done with the takeoff on that page, if we want that legend, takeoff, it automatically comes and it's defaulted on the page and it's always building. Apparently here in Bluebeam, we got to create the legend, come to the plan, and for some reason it's not coming in. So something I just seen here, to create the legend, all we have to do is once we've done the takeoff is we rope around everything. Then we right click, come to legend, create new legend, and then we can come and drop it right on that plan. And now we can see everything that we've taken off on that page. Like I say, in takeoff, it built as we're going, and it's probably a default in Bluebeam where we should be able to turn it on. I'd have to do some research to see where that's at, where the legend's always being built when we're doing the takeoff. But for right now, that's how the legend works there. And from there, that's basically it. I believe as far as how you can perform a takeoff in Bluebeam is pretty much the same as takeoff or any other takeoff software. Once you create your tools and your task, and then you just come to the plan and do the takeoff. As far as a report, we pull this up from the bottom. Here you're going to see our quantity list. So everything's listed here that was in on this takeoff. To get this takeoff list out to Excel, all we have to do is come right here to this little summary. It's got the square with the arrow pointing out of it. We click on that, CSV summary. It pulls up this page. We can name it. Of course, if it's got the drawings already labeled that, it's going to be called that. And at that point, we're just going to say OK. And of course, you can save the location, that you want to save the file, which you would want to save it to that job folder. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Passport F, Projects 2020, into the job, and select folder. And we say OK. And now what that's done is that sent it into the project folder. And I had the little box tick to open up Excel once we created the file, so that's opening that up. And now it's sent it into a CSV folder. We can see all that we took off on the second floor. There's the space. Over here is all our tasks. There's the quantity for count, quantity for square foot, and quantity for length. And basically that's as simple as it is to get the report out. This report would import into the Still Erection Bid Wizard, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. Or you can put it in Excel, work with it from within Excel. And that basically brings us to the end of Module 10, going through Bluebeam Revu Extreme. If you do ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My number is 505-249-2390. And my website is stillestimating.solutions.com. Make it a great day, and we'll see you in Module 11. Thanks.